everybody, this is Ellen from the Somerville Public Library with another cooking demonstration focusing on ingredients that you might have already in your pantry. Today we're going to make Mujadara, which is a dish from the Middle East. It's very common there, but in different regions it might have a slightly different name or the ingredients might vary slightly. It's delicious, protein-filled, and has very few ingredients. It is a little bit time-consuming, but on the other hand, very simple. I made a recipe from the Jerusalem cookbook, which was very, very delicious. But I found a simpler version on the internet, and that's the one that we're going to be cooking today. The ingredients that you're going to need are rice, lentils, olive oil, onions, and the spices. I have salt and pepper and cumin, which are in the recipe. I also have cardamom and cinnamon. When I get to the part with the spices, I'll tell you a bit about why I chose those. A quick word about the lentils. You're going to want to use either green or brown lentils. The reddish orange kind won't work because they'll become too mushy. Okay, let's get started. Okay, I've got 2½ cups of green lentils here. I'm going to rinse them, put them in a pot with 5 cups of water, bring that to a boil, and then simmer it until the lentils are almost cooked. That should take about 15 minutes. So I'm just gonna sort of wash these lentils and then just pour the water off. And I'll do it a second time. This removes a bit of the starchiness. Then I'm going to put them in a pot. And add 5 cups of water. We're going to bring it over to the stove and bring it up to the boil. Once it boils, turn it down to a simmer and put the lid on and cook it for around 15 minutes until the lentils are tender, but not completely all the way done. I have a cup of rice. We're going to rinse that also and set it aside until it's time to add them to the lentils. You can use any kind of rice. I have just the, Uncle Ben's, whatever, enriched. You can use basmati rice, you can use brown rice. That would be a little bit longer of a cooking time. But whatever you use, you're going to rinse it. Just like we rinse the lentils. Maybe do that a couple of times. So when the water stops being cloudy, you know that you've rinsed it enough. And then we're just going to set that aside until it's time to add it to the lentils. Mujadara requires a lot of onions. I've got 5 here. You might want to go with 6. Let's just see what size onions you have and how much we get. We're going to do chopped onions. The majority of this is going to be chopped, cooked in olive oil for a long time. That's why I said the recipe was time consuming, because you have to be patient with these onions. To get them just soft and translucent is not enough. You have to go for a long time, get them nice and brown and caramelized, and they're gonna make the Mujadara very delicious. I'm gonna set one onion aside to slice. That is not gonna be cooked the way I just said. Well, it will be cooked in olive oil, but you're gonna cook it even longer to make them crispy, and that's gonna be the garnish on the top. So, to chop an onion, you peel it, cut it in half, make some horizontal cuts and some vertical cuts. And then when you start slicing it, you get little dice like that. It doesn't have to be neat and pretty. This is all going to be cooked into soft, sort of almost mushy consistency, so don't stress about the shape and size. It's going to be fine. And then for the sliced onion, I'm going to take an onion half and just slice like this. And later this will be fried to be like all crispy and frizzled, and we'll garnish the Mujadara. So while I was cutting up the onions, the lentils came to a boil. I'm going to turn it down to a simmer and put the lid on. And then I'm going to set a timer for, 12 minutes. I'll check on the doneness then. You can see that's a heck of a lot of onion. It does take 10 to 15 minutes to get them brown enough. I think in order to cut down on the time, I'm going to divide that into 2 pans. Oops, there's the lentils. I think they need to go a little more. Basically, most of the water should be absorbed, and it looks like it's got a ways to go. I'm going to put 5 more minutes on the timer and come back and check it then. So anyway, these onions, putting the olive oil in the pan, going to get it nice and hot, and then add the onions and just cook them over a medium heat and just keep stirring them. Let them get nice and brown, and we'll show you some shots of that as we're doing it. Okay, as you can see, most of the water is now absorbed from the lentils, and I'm going to add the rice now and a teaspoon of salt. So this is the rice that we already rinsed, and that goes in just like on top of the lentils and breaking it up a little. We're going to add a teaspoon of salt and 2 cups of water. Then bring it back up to the boil, and once it's boiling, turn it down to a simmer, cover it, and cook it for about 18 minutes until the rice is tender. So you can see I've got the onions cooking over here, and like I said before, I divided them into 2 pans just to cut down on the cooking time, because it will take 10 to 15 minutes to get them brown. Rather than do that in 2 consecutive batches, I'm just doing it all at the same time. So while everything's cooking, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the spices. This very simplified recipe only calls for cumin, a teaspoon of it, which is fine, but it doesn't mention pepper, and I think, black pepper and salt are staples. You should put them in pretty much everything. I'm also going to add a couple others, a little bit of coriander and a little bit of cinnamon. These are also flavors that are used a lot in Middle Eastern cooking. I just am choosing to do this because I think it will taste really good this way. You can use different spices, whatever you choose to. So This is a heaping teaspoon of cumin, a half teaspoon of coriander, a half teaspoon of cinnamon, and a half teaspoon of ground black pepper. When we throw everything together at the end of completing the dish, this will get sprinkled into it. So these onions have been cooking a little while now. You can see that they're starting to brown. They got a long way to go. We'll show you some more in a little bit. So the onions are getting nice and brown now. Still gonna get them a little bit browner. And the rice and lentils are still cooking for another 10 minutes or so. So we will check back when things have progressed. Okay, the rice and the lentils are all cooked. And the onions are all cooked. So I'm gonna mix them together and add in the spices, but just the last thing that we need to do is fry up the sliced onions crisp for the garnish. So I'm just gonna start those to get them going. I'm using the same pan I used to cook these onions. Don't need to wash it. Heat up the oil. These onions go in. I'm going to cook them over medium heat until they get brown and frizzled and crispy. Meanwhile, here's the main dish. Rice, lentils, browned onions. Stirring it all together. And then I'm going to mix in those spices. Again, what we've got here is a tablespoon of cumin, a half teaspoon each of coriander and cinnamon and black pepper. I'm just going to mix it all together. Boy, does it smell good. So as you can see, like I said, it's a very simple dish to put together. The main thing is that you have to be very patient when you're cooking those onions because they do take a long time to get to the right brownness and consistency. So these are the onions for the garnish. They're getting all brown and crispy. And I'm just gonna wrap things up by showing you. This is our final dish. It's very nice if you serve it with some plain yogurt. These frizzly onions on the top for a garnish. This is mint that grows along the side of my house. And this is your complete Mujadara. I hope that you enjoyed the presentation, and I hope that you'll enjoy making the food. If you have any suggestions for recipes or ingredients you'd like to see, leave the ideas in the comments, and if the stars align, maybe we'll do something along those lines. Thank you for watching, and from me and the Somerville Public Library, goodbye.